Hi, and welcome back to my studio. My name is Monica, and today I thought I would come on here really quick because I wanted to try something a little bit different. Spring's right around the corner. We've got a couple of months of spring, April and May, and I wanted to paint a lot of different spring themed things. And instead of presenting this to you as like a spring challenge, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of those, especially over on Instagram, you get a prompt and then you paint from the prompt. And it's usually a daily challenge or every other day, something like that. I don't really care for challenges too much. We all know life gets in the way, and if something derails your day, you're already behind. And I don't like that feeling of the pressure. And I'm not a super fast painter. I don't know if you are or not, but I don't like feeling pressured to paint. There's nothing worse. And I find it hard to get into the flow of painting or creating, for that matter, whatever it is. If I've got a lot of pressure and time constraints. So I wanted to offer something to you that was reframed a little bit differently. So for this, I thought it would be fun to do a series together instead of having these time constraints. I'll give you a list of prompts. You can pick and choose whatever you'd like. And the only parameter on this series will be that it has to be mini. So it can be a piece of embroidery, if that's what you like, or maybe a little collage. You could make painting, drawings, whatever you want to do. Just take these prompts and run with it. I'll leave the link for all of them, and there's 30. So if you want to do one every day, feel free. I'm not going to. I am, over the next several weeks, going to bring what I'm painting from this list of prompts. So I think for the next 4 weeks, this is what I'll be doing. And if I do something that's like really kind of off the beaten path or a little bit different for myself and I want to share it, then I'll come on here and show you what I'm doing. But this prompt list that I have right here that I keep looking at, I will leave this down in the description below. There will be a link to my website, and it's printable, and I made sure that it doesn't have a ton of different colors so you don't chew up all your printer ink. So I hope you give this a try, and if you do, and you post it on Instagram or any of the social media, I have a little hashtag here that you can include in your post so that the rest of us can see it and enjoy it. There's no prizes, there's no, there's nothing except for a series. That's what you're going to have at the end of this, a little series of your own. And it's something that you can continue then maybe next year. You want to continue your spring series. So I hope you give this a try. And if you've got any questions or comments, and go ahead and feel free to leave a comment below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can see the next tutorials over the next coming weeks. So thanks for being here, and let's go ahead and get started with that first one. So let's go ahead and get started. I am actually filming this for a second time, and I had a little bit of a false start, and I'm going to show you what I have here. So this is the piece of paper that I was originally going to work on, and I have 4 of these pieces, and I'm not sure exactly what type of watercolor paper this is. These were at an art store in Portland, Maine, and they had a stack of them laying around, and I love deckled edges. I think it's really pretty, but I do not like what's happening here on the paper. I don't know what the deal is, if I'm painting on the wrong side or what, but I'm starting over, and I decided that since this was going to be a mini series, that I was going to go mini. It's going to be a true mini. And I have this really sweet little book. This is made by Lotus Blue Book Art, and I'll leave the link to her shop in the description box below. But it is filled with 100, I believe, sheets of paper. And I think she originally did this because so many people were doing 100-day challenges. And it's just a nice way to keep them all together. And they're not bound. They are all single sheets in here. And I've painted on a few of them. I haven't done, like I said, just a few. I was testing out. And that actually looks better than when I initially painted it. So that's it. I don't have very many of these. So I'm going to put those to the back. And I think for my spring series, I am going to stick to these little sheets and see what happens. So I have decided to paint the first one on the list. And the reason I decided for the crocus blooms, I'm just going to paint one crocus. I found a really nice reference photo on Unsplash, and they have a really great selection of free reference photos that you can use. Or you can also go to Pixabay, and they also have some really great reference photos. So I am going to sketch out my crocus, and the idea is to paint this loose, blurry background, and the crocus is going to be the star of the show. And I'm not going to tape this down because I like the organic deckled edges, so I don't want to mask anything off. I'm going to keep it just really organic looking. So the first step is to, like I said, get this sketched out, and I'm going to have my crocus off center. And it's just, you know, a cup shape like this, and you probably can't even see this. So I'm going to mask out the stem because it's light colored, and I want to be able to just do a wash like right over the stem. And this crocus is purple, so my background's going to be really light and blurred out, so I think I can get away with not masking out the crocus petals because they're darker than the background. So I have, you know, the general shape here, and then I can start adding in the petals. And I've got one that comes up here, and then it kind of bends. And this one is like a cup. And it's got this edge right here. And then this one is a little bit taller, and it goes behind this one. Now I think I am going to mask out the stem all the way up towards the beginning of the petal because it's really light colored. And then we have this one over here, and this petal's pretty tall, and it's also kind of a side view, and it's also got that cup shape. So get my kneaded eraser here and get some of this graphite out. Like that. And then there's a petal that's tucked back here like that. And then there are some yellow pistils here in the middle, and I am going to mask that out also, simply because they're yellow, and I want to make sure that I retain that so that the yellow will be really vibrant. And then there's like a petal that's hiding back here. It's pretty hidden and pretty blurry. Now the rest of the picture is pretty much blurry until you get right here in the foreground, and then there are some grass blades, and those are going to be darker than what's going on in the background. So I think we can safely get away with waiting until all of that's dry in the background and then painting those in. But before we do that, we are going to go ahead and mask out the stem. And we have to wait until it dries. We can't use a blow dryer or anything. We don't want to bake it into the paper. So I'm using just this little rubber, it's like a little rubber brush thingy to put this in. And it'll go in really quick. And since this is not, you know, a huge piece that we're working on, it shouldn't take but, you know, a couple seconds to dry. Okay, so I'm going to give that a minute and I'll let that dry. So this didn't take very long. Just make sure that when you're using your masking fluid, keep the layer pretty thin and it will dry quickly. So I have my Liang paints. I haven't used these a lot, but I like them because there are some really nice pastel colors in here, and I have a feeling that they're a little more opaque than the other ones, but I don't think it's going to matter because we're using such a small piece of paper, at least I am. So I'm going to start by mixing up a nice light blue, and I'm going to, I'll just lay in a nice wash, pretty watery, and then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to go back in and start laying in I'm going to lay in some other colors. But I want to get this blue in here. And if I go over the petals, and I forgot to mask out the pistils, so I'm going to have to be careful with that. But if I go over the edges of the crocus petals, that's not a big deal because they're a dark purple, and I can cover that up. And I want to keep the edge, it's a little tricky holding on to this, but I want to keep the edge wet down here. I don't want a hard edge. I do want to add in a little bit of maybe a lighter yellow down here, because I see some grass like dried grass, and a yellow ochre I think would be kind of nice. And while this is still wet, I am going to grab some other colors. I have some really great pastel colors in here, and that'll just be like an indication of some other flowers blooming in the background. And I can vary the colors, and I can tell you right now this paper is far better than what I was just painting on. And what else can we drop in there? I don't see any really dark saturated colors, but I do want to vary. I do want to vary the color a little bit, and I do see some pink happening around here. Let's put some more in the background. And if I wanted to, I could indicate some clouds just by lifting out, but I don't think it's really necessary. I do want to drop in a little bit of green, just because there are some grasses in the background, and I want those to be a little bit blurred out, and I want this to read spring. Okay, so I've got to give this a minute to dry, and if you don't like your background wash, you can always wait for it to dry. You can re-wet the background and start dropping in other colors, or you can do a wash of blue over it. You can definitely redo this background if it's something that you feel needs to be redone. And I think because this is so small, I'm fine with how it looks. And I almost grabbed my blow dryer and then realized that I had the masking fluid on there. So make sure that you wait for it to dry if you're using any sort of masking fluid. Okay, I have some, it's like a quinacridone rose and a purple that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to start off with the lightest color that I see, which is kind of a violet, a light violet or a lavender color, and I'm going to add a little bit of that quinacridone rose into that. But I'm going to make sure that it is really light. And I see some of these light areas inside these petals. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop some of these in. And you can see where I went over the petals with my wash, and I actually lost some of the pistil there. So I'm gonna clean my brush off. I'm gonna drop some water in here and see if I can't scrub a little bit of that out. And then I'll just blot it up. With a paper towel. And that worked pretty well. So I'm going to continue adding some of this light. And we actually have some down here, and I think it's safe to take off this masking fluid. So I'm just going to use my finger to rub this out. And the intention was just to save the stem because it's a light blue, and you can see this is taking off some of my paper. Okay. I think that's fixable. I'm going to grab some of this green and I'm going to paint right over, right up to the edge of this stem. And hopefully we won't be able to tell that I've got a little bit of a damaged paper right there. And once we fill this in with some grass from the foreground, I think it'll be okay. I'm not going to give up on it yet. All right. So we've got a little bit of that pink color in there. I can add a little bit of it in down here because I'm seeing some of that right here. And this actually goes into a light blue. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop that right in for my stem. Okay. So I see a little bit of pink. back here in this petal, and a little bit back here. So I'm going to mix up some of this bright purple. Get this going in a palette. I'm just going to drop that one right back in there, and I'm going to add some of this it is a deep purple right on the edge here. And I'll take turns painting these petals so that they don't bleed into each other. So I can move over to this one and paint I just want to paint this edge. And I want that to remain a hard edge, so I'm just going to let that dry. Okay, so something I wanted to mention too is that right now I'm currently working on some birds in a different journal, and I'm using watercolor pencils. And I don't typically use watercolor pencils. I'm not, you know, super comfortable with them yet, but I thought this would be a fun place to try them out or to practice with them. So I am going to grab my I see this is a very orangey pistil in the middle, but I'm going to grab these 3 different yellows, and this is probably overkill, actually. I think I would be good just to use 2. I'll start with a light one, and I'm going to just add these in. And basically, you can draw with these watercolor pencils, and then you just activate them. You just activate them with water. And we'll see how that goes. And I'm going to add a little bit of a darker orange towards the bottom. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And I just need to like dot this with some water. These are pretty nondescript, but I wanted to try to maintain that, you know, really vibrant pop of color. I'm going to take my brush and use it on the tip of the watercolor pencil and just kind of dab some of that in. That's okay, I guess. I could have just used some watercolor paint too, so. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, I need to tidy up this stem a little bit, and it is really like a light lavender, and I kind of botched that when the masking fluid tore my paper. So I'm going to try and get this in here as best I can. And I can always go back with a little bit of white ink or gouache and add in some lighter areas if that's what I want to do. Which is, I think, what I'm going to do in some of these lighter areas that I lost. All right, I'm going to hit that with the blow dryer, and then I'm going to start adding in some foreground grasses. So I'm going to just start adding in some little blobs here. And I want to kind of keep it loose. And I can hold my brush on the side and pull up some thicker areas, and just make sure that when you're doing grasses that you pull the brush in all different directions, because grass never grows, in a straight line. You just want to keep it varied and try to make it look somewhat organic. I think this guy got a little bit too fat. And I think I'm going to grab a little bit of brown, maybe a raw umber. Let's see, because there's a leaf over here. And I can just put in, I'm going to drop a little bit of that same color over here, just so that it's not hanging out by itself. And I am going to cover up part of that stem at the bottom so that it kind of pushes it back and anchors it into the grass. And then I'm going to grab my grass color and do the same thing over here on this side. And it's fun to vary the green too. And don't be afraid, like I said, to pull it up and over the crocus. All right, I'm going to give that a dry, and then I'll add in a few highlights. Okay, and because I can't help myself with these watercolor pencils, I'm going to add in a few details and clean up some of these edges of the petals and a few little of these lines on the petals. The one thing that I do like about the watercolor pencils is that you can get some really intense colors. And I don't have enough experience with them yet to decide whether or not I like them. And So let's see what happens when we activate these. Well, I think what I'm noticing is, you know, you have a little bit more control as far as exactly where the color is going to go. So that's not a bad thing. So I'm going to use a little bit from the lead and just make this a little bit darker right here. It's a little bit too light. And the same thing with this. Okay, and I don't think I need to worry about the stem too much because I managed to hide it with the grass. So the next thing that I said I wanted to do was grab some white, and I do have some white in this watercolor palette, and I don't know how opaque this is. So this would be a good time really to try this out and see what happens. And I wanted to add just a little bit of it down at the bottom of these petals going into the stem, and it's not opaque. So I'm going to grab some of my, this is Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And if you buy it and it gets a little bit dried out, it's not a big deal because it's very easy to just grab a little bit out of here with your brush. And I never used big amounts at one time anyway, and I put it in the lid and add a little bit of water to reactivate it. And the nice thing about it is that I can drop a little bit of color in here too. So I can pick up some pink and just add a little bit of pink to this, and then add in these little details. And then I can take my brush and blend out the bottom here. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps up this little crocus, and I think this was a good start for the first one in my series. There were a couple of little bobbles and mistakes, but just keep in mind that if stuff like that happens, like the ripping of the paper when you're pulling masking fluid off, there's always a way to compensate or fix it. It's never worth getting upset and throwing it in the trash. Just try to work with what you've got, and usually things work out in the end. Have fun with this. I would love to see what you guys make. Be sure to tag me on Instagram at artbymonica70 and Art by Monica on Facebook. You can also use the hashtag that I've created that's on this sheet. And let's see what that hashtag is. Spring Mini Series 2025. So if you do want to create something mini, I would love to see it. I'm sure everybody else would too. So happy painting, and I will see you next week with another one of these. And be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can get the videos when they drop. So have fun and take care. Bye-bye.